Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Create with Decoded, where we sit down with expert builders and learn from them and ask lots of questions along the way. Today, I am joined by Yaokai Jiang, who is the founder and CEO of Momen, which is a new up-and-coming full-stack web app builder or visual development platform. So really happy to have you here, Yaokai. I know we've spoken before and you showed me a bit of what Momen could do. And also you told me the super interesting story of how it was founded in what seemed like quite a short amount of time over COVID, I think it was.
Yes,
Um,
it's been already 5 years, so it's not like super short. We're still fairly, our history is still fairly short compared to bubbles, but 5 years is
yeah,
eternity in the startup world.
yeah. And it certainly, there's before COVID and after COVID all the timelines go a bit squiffy in my head. I don't know why. But yeah, we'd love to hear the founding story, like how you came up with the idea, what made you decide to do it, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, so I was basically a software engineer by training and by trade. As soon as I graduated from master's, started working for this company called Medallia and ended up being a backend engineer for like 7 years. During that time, I started a few side projects on my own and some with my friends. Unfortunately, most all of them failed. But during that time, I realized like when we're actually solving a business problem, there isn't much like hardcore coding involved. Most of them involves CRUD and APIs and access to database, setting us the schema, and dealing with a bit of CSS on the front end, and then hooking stuff up. There is some core logic that typically involves like no more than a few thousand lines of code. So I thought to myself, this shouldn't be reserved to like the people who had like 4 or 5 years of training in this. More people should be able to do this. And that was my idea. So after 2018, when the startup that I joined went public, I decided to do this, and then I eventually took me a little bit of time to come to the conclusion that I actually wanted to do this. But when I did, I was like just before COVID hit, I think. So the whole thing started off as COVID was unfolding, and we wanted initially I just wanted to like democratize the software building for people. And funnily, we didn't even know that bubble existed back then. So that was tells you how much of an amateur I was when I started off building this company. And from the get-go, we wanted to have this thing accessible to people that are capable of, for example, dealing with Excel. I think Excel is a complex enough tool that if people can become comfortable with that, they're almost halfway into building like actual applications. And the other thing we wanted it to be is modern. So we wanted all the modern tech stack from like Kubernetes to GraphQL to React on the front end, and we wanted to be strongly typed. That's partly because of my background as a Java developer. I always liked typed systems because that gives us more confidence when we shipped our product, because at least the things that don't type check is excluded.
And what
And
does strongly typed mean
yeah,
in
so that means
layman's terms?
yeah, so a strongly typed system is essentially like you cannot assign a variable that's expecting to be a, let's say, a date or a timestamp, but you can't give it just a string, right? You can't give it text. It has
Hmm.
to conform to the same time. If you wanted an image, it has to be an image. You can't just give it a number, because they take different operations. For example, an image can be uploaded, but what does it mean to upload a number, right? A number can be added together, but what does it mean to add a timestamp to an image? Like operations stop making sense when the types don't match. So that's the crux of a type system. So a type system ensures that everything is what they expect to be. So that can happen at the runtime, which is when the program is actually running, or at the edit time is when you're actually dealing with it in the editor. So we specifically wanted this thing to be type safe at the editor level, much similar to languages like Java or TypeScript, so that people who use our platform to ship products are more confident that their application would run as expected when it's in the wild.
Can I just ask? So this is always puzzled me. So I once built a no code like landing page developer, landing page like builder, using Bubble. I built it with no code, and to get into the mindset of building a builder for other people, it was quite a big shift for me, because it's quite different from you just build an app that everyone's going to use and everyone's going to pretty much use it the same. I had to build an app that people could customize in many different ways. And that was I had to think really hard about how to do that. How technically difficult is it to use code to build a no code app builder? This to me seems like a huge challenge in terms of the complexity and stuff.
Yeah, so the whole thing split into couple of components, and there's unique challenges to each component. You got the editor, which is when the developers are using Momen to edit or actually build their thing. And then we have what we call the runtime. So that's when the program is actually running and it's serving their end customers. Now, for the editor, the problem becomes, okay, what is the granularity of abstraction? So how much we abstract away the underlying complexities, right? So the more you abstract away, the easier it is for our user to comprehend, the less flexibility they have. And so that's more of a product decision that we had to make. So we decided on mostly atomic things. For example, for components, we abstracted all the way up to, an image component or a text component or a list component. We did not go up one level. For example, we did not offer anything like a voting module, right? So there is no business logic involved in these components. On the data operation side, we basically abstracted into CRUD operations, and then workflows that can combine these CRUD operations. Obviously, on top of the CRUD operations, we also have like external API integration, but from the systems point of view, they're approximately the same level as CRUD operations. So that's like the abstraction in the product level. And obviously, there's a lot of details that comes with these things. For example, permissions, right? How do you enable the user to set up proper permissions so their product can actually be commercially viable, so people don't take advantage of security loopholes. So these are the details. And then on the runtime side, it's about performance, mostly about performance and correctness. So in terms of performance, our thinking has always been that every dollar we save on the runtime is going to be multiple dollars for our customers, because we do need a proper margin to survive, and then our customers want to pay as little as possible because that's what everybody wants. So the only real solution to that is if we are able to make efficient use of our computing resources, and that's something we strive for. And on the and the thing that's bridging between the editor and the runtime is a deployment system. So we wanted the deployment system to handle both multi-tenant use cases, so multiple users sharing the same backend server, so that has to ensure some security. There has to be separation between the tenants, and single tenancy. So we can give user dedicated resources or even multiple of that, so that uh, our application can scale up to tens of millions of rows per table, and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of active users. So those are the things we had to contend with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that does sound very complicated to me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is it? I imagine that it's easier to make a vibe coding platform than it is to make a visual development platform, because I feel
Yes.
like you just have some kind of environment that the code will be stored in and that it will run, and that's kind of it, and the AI just does its thing, and that's it.
Yeah, that's entirely correct, because to make a vibe coding tool, most of the infrastructure is already built for you. You're only doing one thing, which is to generate the code. That's like one portion of a no-code tool, right? The If you imagine the input to the no-code tool is a bunch of user configurations, and there's some kind of translation into the actual running thing. Um, that's basically what the vibe coding tool is doing, except even in there, the AI is doing the heavy lifting, right? So, yeah, but if you look at Lovable, they are actually trying to go from the vibe coding tool now back towards like the no code part, because they're now introducing the editor, right? Because I think that's inevitable. If you were to target people that don't know how to code at all, then you need something that they can control. And people can control no-code tools because people inherently understand visual cues, colors, drop downs, all these things facilitate understanding. And it also enables precise control. So I can select a particular button and say, make this bigger, right? This is 2 pixel bigger, 5 pixel bigger. But if you're entirely relying on AI to do that, not only it doesn't always do what you want, because we all know that AI has it's an inherent part of AI is hallucinations. Secondly, it's not very efficient because the AI has to read the entire code to figure out where the piece of thing that you're interested in is, and then where you could already have chosen it by just selecting it using a mouse, which is much more efficient than having the AI to do it, right? Um, so I think in the end, the eventual, like the end game for no code will be no code plus AI, which is what we are doing now, and which is what Bubble is also doing right now. So AI is going to act as both a repetitive task reducer and also a teacher. So a lot of times, even with no code, you don't know how to get started. But with AI, you have almost infinite abilities to generate examples, and we are, as a species, very good at pattern recognition, right? So you see that example happen 3 times with different inputs. You're like, now I get it. This is how I'm supposed to do it. So that should lower the boundary of entry to no code development even further. But I think, yeah, if Lovable were to target people that are non-technical, building an editor is something that they cannot bypass.
Yeah, this is what I've been thinking. I've been seeing all the no code platforms have added AI, and they're moving more towards like, yeah, generate an app really quickly, but you can maintain it with your visual development
Yeah.
interface. And then the vibe coding platforms, very very fun to build something very quickly, but then you have no idea how to maintain it. So they do all need to add some kind of interface that makes it a lot easier for you to maintain it. And whether that's fully visual editor or whether there is some other clever way they can think of that can just give you that more granular control and
Yeah.
not risk breaking the entire app every time you update a tiny piece of code.
Yeah.
And
Fine
also,
grained
yeah, I'd love
control.
to see more teaching within the platforms as well, because yeah, I still look at the code and I just think I have no idea what it's doing. I'm just clicking yes to everything.
Yes, it's accept all and then pray to
Yeah,
the AI god that things will work.
exactly. Which is great for a fun project, but there's no way I would build anything that I was actually gonna, try and take payments or get proper users for.
Yeah, because you feel a lack of control, right? And I think for anyone who's developing anything, you intend to shape the world that this if that's the world you intend to shape it, and you want the sense of control that first comes from for being able to understand it, secondly being able to observe it. So that is inherent in being a developer, whether you use code or not. You want to know what's going on and you want to predict what will happen, and you want to be able to modify it the way you see fit. Right? So those are the things that development like developer tooling should always target.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's so interesting to see how it all evolves. But yeah, if I'd love to see some of Momen and the interface, because it's been a while since I've seen it. If you're willing to share
Sure.
your
Yeah,
screen and
I
show us
will
some stuff, that
share
would
my
be awesome.
screen. Yeah. So this is just a Momen website, right? And then as you've seen, probably nothing much has changed on the website's part. So what I'm gonna show today is I've built a little demo. So it's a somewhat fun demo. So now we have like an actual debugging thing going on. So I'm going to register
Hmm.
myself a new account. And I built this in like a few hours, so it's still somewhat rough. So if let's say my goal is to lose weight and I'm male, I'm like 150 pounds and 170 centimeters, and I'm going to select some dates. You That's my date of birth, and I want to lose weight by next year, sometime in next year, right? So I submit. Here is all the information about me, and I'm gonna say this is the food I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna ask AI to judge me. Uh, it's probably gonna be very angry at me because if I were to lose weight, I've eating this whole feast of stuff. It's like, oh, yeah, that's when I said I didn't really build this out too well, but it took me a few
It's a
hours.
cool interface, though.
Yeah.
I've not really seen anything like this in any of the no code builders.
So perhaps they are too high in calories for the database to handle, but let's talk about those calorie choice and all that. The amount of meat and rich size, it looks like a meal, more like a calorie, less like a meal, more like a calorie contest.
You
Your
want to
current
lose weight
choice
by next
reflect
year?
more of a professional eating contest than someone committed to reach their weight loss goals. I've seen
This
folks
is
turn to
quite funny
vegetarian.
for AI.
Yeah, okay. So I'm like, all right, okay. So how's that done, right? So we initially we just have this login page, which is the home page. It does very simply tries to register a new account and takes me somewhere. And then it will first actually take me here to enter my information and my goal, and then it end up in this roasting page, right? And this roasting page actually goes through a few states. So initially, when it's not uploaded, this is what it shows. It just is empty. And once it's uploaded, it will show the image and roast me. And when it's roasting, it shows a nice animation thinking that the AI is thinking. And once it's roasted, it shows the answer. That's basically the gist of it. And I also have a thing that says needs payment, and I haven't touched anything here. I'm gonna hopefully the live demo is gonna work because I did not practice this. I'm gonna add a thing for the AI to subtract my credits every time I run the AI, and then it will ask me for a payment once the credit run out. Okay, and then the button that we clicked to run the AI is this. So once it's clicked, it first sets a variable to roasting. So that's why we get a state transition, because the condition now matches a different thing. And it starts a conversation on using an AI called the angry guy, and passing the image that we just uploaded. And once it's done, it will go to the roasted state and update the answer on the page. So that's like the gist of it. And the angry guy is this guy. So we can take a look at what it actually does. The angry guy takes an image as an input, and then it says, I'm an angry dietitian, identify food, and then calculate calories first, and then roast the user for the choice of food, be sassy. The user is weight, height, sex, whatever. These are loaded out from database and plugged in at runtime. And it also gives the current date time so that the AI can calculate how much time there is between now and the goal's deadline. And then we have a context here from the database. We're doing a RAG from the database, getting the most suitable meal plans content based on like how similar the suitable for field is to the user's goal. Mm-hmm. And after that, there's a bunch of tools here. In here is calculator, which is just a multiplier. And then another agent, which does the fetching of the calories from the database. So we can actually build agentic workflows where one agent can decide to call different agents or call action flows or call APIs, external APIs as their tool. So you can imagine this API could be like in one of the examples I built that was dealing with Google Calendar. So in here will be a bunch of APIs dealing with interacting with Google's Calendar, so you can query it and add new events and stuff like that.
So this is not just an AI prompt storage section. It's actually these are agents.
These are agents, yes. So in our model, the agent is made up of the input, so the user input, the prompt template, the RAG portion. You can also do RAG on APIs if you want. So this, you can hook this up to, I don't know, maybe a different vectors database, which exposes a REST endpoint. Tool use. So each tool also, you can like comment on these tools. Let's see, what did I put here? Never mind. Yeah, you can also add comments on these descriptions on these each field. And in the end, output can also be structured. So if you want, you could say, you can build an object out of it, or an array of stuff, array of objects of like foods, right? And then like name, calories, and in the end, like, commentary. You can have that, and then you can even have like Boolean stuff, so that this can then be used as conditionals, or you can extract different fields and show them different where on the UI. So these are all doable with Momen. I'm going to undo this because I only use it as a plain text. Now I am going to run it, and we'll see what it actually did. So this is when it constructed the prompt, and you see I have nothing in the meal plans, probably because it was completely empty. I think I forgot about it. And it did not find smoked meats. Okay, so this is probably because I forgot to put in my food in here. That's probably why. I'll show you when that has a food, and that I cloned the project, forgot it, and I forgot about the data. But we can add another thing here to mimic the reduction of credits. So I'm gonna use the reduce credit tool used to subtract credit from the account, and that's just account ID, and here I'm going to add the user's account ID is logged in user's account ID. And here I'm going to say always call reduce credit before returning result. Okay. So I'm going to update this. And this time I'm going to rerun. I'm going to rerun the this thing, and if I run it the second time, we should end up in the payment thing.
And so, is the reduce credit tool? Is that something you built?
Yeah, that's just anything built in the system can be used as tools for the AI. For example, these are the action flows that I built. Any one of them can be used as any one of them can be used as a tool for the AI.
So you could trigger that from a button press on the interface, or you could trigger it
via
from the AI agent.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And so in here, I'm going to run that, and then we'll see that. Okay, I'm going to ask it to roast me again, and we can look at the data. By the time it finishes, the credit should go to 0. It's still working. So once it's done, okay. So if we refresh this, the credit is now 0. Right, so that's now 0. So that says, okay, that's fine. What if I try to rerun it again? It should now take me to the payment page. Okay. Live queries, live things never work as intended. But you see that now it says there's no permission, right? You are not allowed to run it anymore. So we could build something that directly takes us to the recharge page. But I think it's easier if I just showed you a different project that uses payment, because what I did here was I just created a thing that used payment, and I forgot to test it. So this is a project that I also built out of Momen, and it's a video website, and I called it a Udemy because it's a knockoff of Udemy, right? So we can log in, and actually, I'm going to give myself another account. That's probably because I already have that. Okay, so now I'm logged in. You can see this now says your course library awaits. Let's go in there. It asks us to it asks us to buy stuff, right? You can't really see anything, but once we buy, there's Stripe integration that's built in, and this what I'm using a sandbox. So, and this is when you get the live query that picked up the changes, and now you can actually see the video, and you can ask questions on the course's content using AI. So in here, I may be asking like, how can Momen support images? And it should, yes, Momen can support image. You can add a cover image field in the database and bind to the image content in the UI. That's actually coming from the transcript of the video. Or you could say something like, can a pig eat the sun? Well, then because it's not relevant to the course, it just says sorry, right? So
Nice.
this is
Yeah.
also configured all in Momen, and I think that's coming from here. That's our Udemy thing, and this is the editor. This one is, in terms of AI, it's much simpler than the one I just showed you, because like we just got in here, and then once you click send, it starts a thing called QA machine, passing in the course ID and the question. And that's basically it. We got in the course ID and the question, we plugged in the question to here, we told AI to be concise, and if it's not found in the context, we'll just say, sorry, I can't help you. And in terms of the context, you get the transcript from the course whose ID is equal to the course ID that we just passed in. So that's a very simple setup, but you can imagine it being somewhat useful to, people trying to look back into video courses that they have watched.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I think I built this fairly quickly too. It's not a particularly demanding project.
So
And this
the AI
thing,
agent feature
yeah,
is, how long have you had that?
we had that since the end of last year, I think, very end of last year.
Yeah, that's cool. It's
Yeah, I think we are the only one who has, which has like a full-fledged agent builder inside, which is like fully integrated with existing functionalities in the system, in the no-code space, as far as I'm aware.
yeah, I haven't seen that before, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because you already built all these workflow, right? All the workflows, you already imported all the APIs. You already have your database, which is perfect for fetching contexts from, right? You
Yeah,
do want the AI to respond differently depending on your business data.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and this thing has mobile layout too, so like it's fully responsive, like the typical, the any modern no code tool should support that, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the question is how difficult it is to make it look good on mobile. Yeah,
This
these
is
days it's
the difficulty. Essentially, I think I changed the layout of this from left to right to vertical, from horizontal to vertical. I think that's what I did.
yeah,
Yeah. So this one's main section is going horizontal, and this one is the main section, but it's going vertical. And I think that's, and I also adjusted the size of this, but I think that's about it. Yeah, and on top of that, the other fun thing that I think is quite important is the logging, because as I said, developers want control, right? Part of the sense of control comes from observability. So we want to know what the system actually did. So one thing that we added, I think also in the past year, is the log functionality. The log system is able to go by, well, we can filter by different things, but one of the most important filters is a trace ID. A trace ID happens when either a user clicked on something, or on the back end, if like a webhook is called, right? So in this case, if I just clicked on, well, this should have no effect, so it should be fine. So these are all the things that happened for this particular click. So we can look at them in different levels. We can look at the gateway. So that's what the gateway received, but it's for the same request. Or you can look at the AI. So what did the AI do? Nothing much. Database access, what did it get from the database? And did it run an action flow? No, in this case, no. But what if we looked at some of the payments? So for example, if we looked at triggers, there's a payment intent coming from Stripe. That's the callback coming from Stripe. And if we look at all the access, you can see it started off with a thing that's coming from a action flow. So that's when it's being called by Stripe. So Stripe calls in, and then you can look at, did it have database access? Yeah, it looked at, I think it should come up. Oh, I think I clicked too fast. But yeah, you can have database, but there's no AI involved in there. There's no external API call involved there. The whole thing is a trigger, and you can look at deployment histories and all that. So this makes figuring out what went on in your system a lot easier. I think we keep the logs for like 7 days if you're on a pro, and for the other plans is either 1 day or something. So that's something I think is quite useful. And the other one that people often get a bit interested in is code components, right? Can we actually plug in code into the system? In this case, we support like integration of React code. Like this particular thing here is a code component, and you can write them with cursor. In fact, I think I wrote this with cursor because I'm not very good with React. So
that looks crazy. It looks difficult to write.
So, well, cursor wrote most of it, so I'm lucky.
Well done, cursor.
We do enforce a little bit of convention, which is this. So your input to your React component has to have prop data, prop state, and event. It has to have 3 things, and each of them, it has to follow the convention where the first part is your component name, and then the last part is prop data, state data, event. And that's the only convention we ask you to follow. And once that, everything else is just normal React. Do whatever you want, right? So this is normal React. And the data in here is coming from the project's database. And we give you a helper function by this use app context to do queries with the project's database with the proper access control. And obviously you can just find any publicly available endpoint and fetch data from there directly from the front end, but that's up to you, because then we don't really have to help you, because that's already, React handles all that. And the good thing about this is you notice that city name and year are 2 things that we declared in prop data, and that is going to show up in the data binding section for this particular component. So in this case, we have bound the city name to the output of another code component. So that's a code component we call the searchable city selector. And the year is bound to this year selector, which is a no-code component, right? So that means if we chose anything in here, it will directly affect the code component. And if we did something here, likewise, that's going to happen. So we have made code components, I think, first-class citizens here, because it can interact with other parts of the system. And then that's what we intend to do, because I think a lot of people using no-code tools worry that what if your platform's ability is now it's limiting me, right? In that case, I'm like, okay, so on the front end, you can totally import your own React component, and we place no restrictions on it. And in fact, you can look at here, like eCharts or eCharts GL or whatever. These are not Momen specific things, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and we also wanted to make this as React like as possible. We don't want to make these things Momen like. We want to make them React like. We want you to be able to import existing libraries, leverage existing assets, right? So that will reduce your cost of development as well. Yeah,
And
I think that's yeah.
can you put the code in? Can you run code in like a workflow
Yes,
from a button?
we are, for example, in here in the Stripe callback. This is JavaScript. This portion we're still not very satisfied with because there are some convention that is basically GraphQL, but the other thing we didn't like about it is the inability to easily import existing libraries. And there are ways to get around that. You could do a pre-packaging, but it's very involved, and we are currently trying to redesign the backend code. We call it the code block,
Mm-hmm.
but totally you can write JavaScript in here. Yes.
Okay, that's cool. And then in terms of the privacy and security,
Yeah.
how do you handle that?
So I'm assuming you're asking the equivalent of Bubble's privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can have different roles, and each role can have their own set of rules. The rules will be specific to every component of the system, so databases, APIs, action flows, agents. We should just call them AI agents. We used to call them AI configurations, a bit wordy, or even payments, right? So if for each table, you can enable CRUD, and you can also control them at the column level.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like maybe users can't read their own canceled state or something. And you can also add a row level filter. So in this case, it says you can only look at a particular row if its ID is equal to your logged in user's ID. Right. So,
Yeah.
so that means you can't read someone else's. And that should be the same for the edit, but I didn't touch it, so it's still not here. But the way you do that is just going to be that. And you can do that for every single table. And you can have different rules for different user roles. For example, these are for people that have not logged in. In that case, you can see the number of tables that's accessible is already fewer, from
Mm-hmm.
14 to 7, because I don't really want you to look at the AI message content, or something. I forgot what I put there, but and then you can do the same thing with the APIs. For example, I don't know if there's anything that ties it to. Well, in this case, there's nothing tying it to it. Maybe you should put in like a user ID or something. But what did this have? Let's see. Yeah, these ones have no input. If they had an input, it would show up on the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get rid of this. And on action flows, you can, yeah, there's no input. So that's not going to work. Let's go back to the one that I was working on, the angry dietitian. The one I just set up for the AI was for the angry guy, right? So I said, okay, the logged in user's credits has to be greater than 0. That
Uh-huh.
was the permission that I set. So there's no way to bypass that on the front end because it gets checked every time it gets invoked. So
Yeah.
you can be sure that all the permission control happens in the backend.
Very interesting. And in terms of like pricing, do you do like, I don't know, workload based pricing,
What we
usage based
do,
pricing?
so the pricing we got tiers. Those are like bundles, right? So like it'll bundle in capabilities with a bit of a capacity. But essentially what we limit to is requests per second. So for basic, that's 5 requests per second. That's same as basic like Airtable. And
Mm-hmm.
for Pro, you get payment, and then that gets bumped up to 25. But you're still sharing instances with someone else. Where you think 25 is not enough, you can now bump up to the dedicated instance. That's what I mentioned in the previous discussion when we were like when I was discussing the deployment. You can have dedicated instance, and this gets you approximately between 100 to 200 requests per second. So, and then you can stack it up, and that's how we charge. Mostly how we charge people.
Mm-hmm.
And in here, you do get, for example, if you do Pro, there is a limit on how many automated workflows you can run. So an action flow becomes automated when it's either triggered by a database change or it's triggered by a timer, so a scheduled job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get 50,000 of them a month. So that translates to about like 1 per minute.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that's triggered by an external action is controlled by the RPS, so that's not counted in it. So you still get, if you trigger it by like a mouse click, then it's within that 25 RPS, so we don't count it against the 50,000. And then there's a bit of these things. For example, if you do object storage, like I think it's like 7 cents, sorry, 3.5 35 cents per gigabyte per year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also charge by outflow bandwidth. So that's like, if when people download images, so that's like I think that's 7 cents per gigabyte.
Mm-hmm.
And once you go dedicated, you have no limit on your automated action flows. The thinking is that if you're in a shared instance, we want you to limit yourself, right? Because otherwise you take over the resource for everybody else. And once you're in dedicated, we don't really care how you use your resources. So you decide how you want to allocate compute towards either serving requests coming from the front end or requests that's running in the back end.
And if you were lucky enough to have an app that went viral on Reddit or something, so you were exceeding your 25 requests per second, what would happen? Would they fail, or would it try and like spread them out, just make it slower?
So the user's so we will queue requests up to like 3 seconds. I think 3 or 5 seconds, I forgot which one, but it was a number of requests will be queued up. Once it's over that, the user will get a 429 error saying that too many requests. But I think the way we presented it was like, system is busy, please wait before you try again. And yeah. And the largest client that we had in terms of daily active users, like 120,000.
Wow.
The system was fairly simple. It was to find the nearest location for doing like nasal swabs. So it was a Chinese customer, and it had a whole district on it. And so every day people had to do the COVID days, right? China had a zero COVID policy. And that one, they had 4 of these. They ran on 4 of this.
Wow.
And yeah, and then they would go there and then record that they've been there. And I forgot exactly what they did. It wasn't a very complex one, but it was a lot of users. People would open up their app and check out the nearest location, go there and record something. That was like essentially the flow.
Wow, that was a great like load tester or something for you to
Yeah,
have
it's
a
true.
client
I
like
mean,
that.
the user, due to caution, purchased 8 of these. I was like, you probably don't need 8, but they're like, yeah, we have a lot of users. So in the end, we monitored their load, and it maxed out at 4.
Nice. And what we're coming up to time now, but what are some of the favorite things that you've seen built on Momen?
So one of them was the my personal favorite was a card collecting app. So he started off. He has a day job as a fund manager. He has a hobby um, as a soccer card collector. In England, we would call them football cards, right? And most of them are they're made in Europe because I don't know. I don't know that industry. So initially, he built one for himself on the free tier because that's enough, right? Just for himself. Uh, it enables him to track for each collection how many cards he already have, whether he has complete collections or not. And then his friends saw it because card collectors have card collector friends, and his friends like we want it too. So he made the account system for that thing, and so his friends on it. And once these friends on it, they're like, okay, now we want to trade because I saw you have 2 of this particular card, and I have 2 of this particular card, and they wanted to trade. And then with trading, it comes like then they want to rate it, and the rating, apparently there are rating agencies for these cards, but the rating agencies have a minimum order quantity. So he became the reseller of rating things, so people would send their cards to him. And with that, it came the problem with logistics. How he is a single person, right? He wanted to remain a single person, so he then built an automated logistics system. So the user would do a bunch of stuff which would eventually give them a piece of paper that they have to stick onto the back of the card, so that when he receives it, he just have to scan and know exactly which card it belongs to, which person it belongs to, and which particular order it is for. And then by the time it comes to shipping it back, he would scan the card, and then he also hooked up he did like API integration with the shipping company, and then another API integration with a printer. So it would scan it, and it would automatically print out, and he just had to put it on. So he ran this operation. Well, he also developed other businesses around it, which is like selling the protection cases for these cards. Apparently, they take good care of their cards. So he ran this thing alone, and his revenue from last year approached it's close to $1 million as a single
Wow.
person. And it all came,
And
but
it's
he
just
was
his
on the
hobby.
platform a long time. He started in 2022. Like that was the first time he used Moment, but like it just evolved and evolved, and his business grew and grew, and now he's like, I probably make more revenue than you. I'm like, yeah, probably.
Well, that's amazing. Is he still working full time as a fund
He
manager
is
as
still
well?
working full time. He's recently changing jobs, and I only recently found out like who he is in real life, like 2 months ago. We've been talking online a lot, and I never saw him offline. But then I saw him offline like in March or something. I was like, damn, you're making a lot of money, man.
That's so cool. And I guess he'd never done any programming before, but
Oh,
he's
he has
just
no
if he's a
programming
fun
experience. Yeah.
yeah, if you're a fund manager, you got to be good with spreadsheets and stuff though. So
Yes. Yeah. He's good
yeah,
at with spreadsheet. Yeah.
yeah. So obviously, yeah, the benefit of this kind of tool for someone who likes spreadsheets
I mean,
is
it's
just huge.
I always think like these kind of tools are for people that are smart but have no time or opportunity to train for coding, right? That's the idea. And that's why I really loved his story, because like I think without Moment, he wouldn't have this near $1 million business.
Yeah,
And it all came from a
absolutely.
humble beginning of a free tier on Momen serving himself, which is also like what I really liked.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. Yeah, I love hearing things like that, and I think if more people heard stories like that, then more of my friends who are in boring jobs would be trying to build their own apps and stuff. But I can't even the ones that like spreadsheets. I can barely convince them to look at no code tools, which is kind of
Maybe they
weird.
should
So
just start off building something small for themselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then get bitten by the bug. Okay, so last question. Do you think what do you think the future of coding as a profession is?
I think it's like any profession. The bar for making a living from that profession is just going to keep going up, but the people at the top will start making more and more. It's like pianists, right? Before the sound recorders, you got a pianist in every single town because people need pianists for their celebrations, and you don't need to be a particularly good pianist to make a living. And once you got a sound recorder, now you have a way to amplify the top performers' influence. Now, as a pianist, if you want to make a living, not only you have to compete against people that are in different geographies, you also have to compete people against people who's in completely different time frames, right? Like, so your ability to make a living from that profession just got much more difficult. But the people that are now getting amplified is making more money. And same thing is probably going to happen with code. Um, the uh, the people's abilities who's getting amplified either through AI or more. I think no code is a form of amplification as well, because like that code was written once by some engineer and now it's used to generate code for other people. So yeah, so that's gonna happen too. Like there will come a time where knowing how to write CRUD and hooking up APIs is no longer sufficient for you to call yourself a software engineer. And that's all. That also means the product of software engineering becomes more accessible to the masses, just like uh, sound recorder did for all the songs that pianists used to play.
Yeah, that sounds very intuitive. I totally agree, and I think it's the same across so many industries as well. That the AI effect is
Yeah,
just raising the bar for what you have to do to stand out, but also if you use it correctly, it's giving you more time to work on like the higher agency stuff
yeah,
that sets humans apart from AIs. So, and think a bit more, but I think there's a temptation just to use it and just to be lazy and then kind of just relax the
yeah.
rest
I
of the
think
time.
that's the
But the
wrong
truth is, you
approach. I
can't.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah, we should use it as a muse, not as an oracle, right? It should be a muse to the humans, and then we can think about things more in depth and figure more things out and learn more things.
yeah. Hopefully, it's a big mindset shift, isn't it? From just sitting there and figuring out your job and then do the same thing over and over, and now it's suddenly like, oh, we've actually got to like use our brains, even though we've got a tool that can do our old jobs for us. But if we want a job, you've actually got to start
Yeah,
thinking more and
yeah, it's true.
kind
It's
of
more
go back to
demanding
school.
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Well, yeah, that was super interesting. Thank you so much for the demo and for the interesting discussion about topics that I think a lot of us have been thinking about. Um, and yeah, wishing you the best of luck with Momen, and I'm looking forward to trying it out actually, because I think the agent side is very interesting, because I know you can build agents in a lot of tools, but it's way more convoluted than that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
yeah,
Well, because we can build on what we had existing, right? So
yeah, that seems like a very smart feature to build in. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to see you in real life soon at the conference. I doubt this episode will be out by then. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more about it and yeah, discussing with you some more of these interesting topics.
Likewise. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.